I'm Terry Bills, the Transportation Industry Manager here at Esri, and I'll be your moderator for today's briefing. So I would also like to welcome you and thank you for attending today. Because we have a lot that we want to cover this morning, I'd like to dive right in and get started with our first speaker, Greg Slater. Greg is the Secretary of Transportation for the state of Maryland, a state which has long been a leader in the effective use of information for transportation decision-making. As Greg will point out, his resume does include a strong familiarity with GIS, and he certainly understands how GIS has helped his agency become a national leader in data and public transparency. So let me turn this over to Greg to get us started. Greg?
Thank you for that kind introduction and for bringing such a great and inspiring and diverse group of transportation and GIS professionals today for this conversation. I'm still really humbled to be included in it. I'm humbled to be the first Secretary of Transportation in Maryland that has come up from within. And I can honestly say that GIS has played a key role in every aspect of my career at MDOT over the last 2 decades. When you look at my resume, you'll see Transportation Secretary responsible for all aspects of transportation. You'll see State Highway Administrator responsible for our entire state highway system, but you also see GIS Analyst early in my career. In that world, I completely gravitated to how we use the technology to make a positive difference, not just the technology itself. And with it, I felt like I could see things that others could not, patterns and how one aspect impacts another. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're using it there today. You know, nearly more than 20 years later in my career as I sit here today, I've had the opportunity to see and encourage more data-driven decision-making in all aspects of our transportation modes throughout Maryland. Spatial data is incredibly important for modern DOTs across this country because we can only truly serve our customers by knowing what they're doing and how they're traveling and where they are. At its core, our transportation investments should not only be chasing those patterns, but also predicting those movements and addressing the problems and challenges before they arise. Both our operating and our capital programs have to be finely tuned to ensure that every dollar spent is maximizing its impact on delivering these improvements and delivering our program. The role of GIS at MDOT has expanded tremendously over the last 10 years and has a direct role in the vision for this entire department. We are extremely fortunate that we have a really strong data-driven team that has really embraced solid data governance principles that have allowed us to move beyond that static mapping world to a wide variety of tools and dashboards and applications and story maps that directly contribute to our mission and the vision for what we provide to our customers. As you see in this slide here, our data sources really are focused on multiple purposes for one data source, integrated in a way that we can use them for multiple purposes and multiple outcomes. They fall in 3 key areas. First is how we're using our data to communicate with our customers, how we're using our tools to communicate with our customers, how we're tracking key assets and initiatives, and how we're tracking performance in our programs. And then really the part that I get most excited about that really has emerged over the last several years is using it in that real-time operational decision support world in what we're doing every single day. Switching over to some specifics here, you know, in this COVID-19 world that we're all living in right now, we're dealing with day-to-day aspects and day-to-day decision-making where data has been critical. And even during this pandemic, focusing on data and performance has been key to us. We're tracking travel across the state, monitoring volumes of travel on our roadways, monitoring ridership on our transit lines, flight patterns through our airports, and freight movement coming in and out of the port from international destinations across our maritime system. And being able to see this data overlaid with ongoing trends from our Department of Health has helped us really understand how the supply chain was moving in the midst of the general public heeding advice from our health professionals to stay home. We were able to dial into data specifics as needed to inform how our travel decisions were being made, how we were putting more safeguards in place, and how our projects could proceed with those lower travel volumes. just as important as this data was to us early on in this pandemic, as we were looking toward recovery, monitoring these year to year over year trends is really telling us about where travel patterns are today, how they're changing, how they compare to where they were last year. And while disruptors and unknowns like the long-term future of things like teleworking still are impacting our ability to precisely model things, the data we've collected is an invaluable resource to our team, and getting it into our systems to be able to utilize it for a variety of purposes really helps us, one, make our day-to-day decisions, but two, really help us guide our decisions in the future to understand where we go next. From an operational standpoint, it's really the integration of GIS, and I alluded this a little bit in my introductory remarks, but from an operational standpoint, GIS has changed the way we manage things like emergency operations. So let's look at winter and those types of things. That's a really critical one for us. And this is just the most recent way that we've been utilizing GIS data to drive our decision making. We were already using GIS tools at MDOT that included our operations dashboard, which has really been integral in our winter storms. This year in particular, we had put protections in place. So we were monitoring our winter storms and deploying our resources in a remote environment. After a quiet kind of 2020 winter here in the Baltimore, DC region, we had a 2-week period this February where we had 6 winter storms over a 10-day period. And so due to our COVID-19 precautions and our statewide operations center not being able to be deployed, we needed to be able to see everything in real time from home. I needed to be able to see everything from real time, no matter where I was. Things like pavement temperature, what kind of precipitation was falling and what kind of precipitation was on our roadway. What was our mobility data? What were we seeing out there in terms of travel as the weather was falling? And I'm able to look at all of those things in this system. I can even look at the dash cams from our field response crews, as well as the mounted highway cameras on our signs. I can see pavement data to really tell us what the condition of our pavement is, whether it's icy, whether it's wet. I can see precipitation within a millimeter accuracy of data to be able to understand what we're seeing on our system. And then we're able to integrate a lot of that real-time data into the system to be able to see how people are traveling with the snow falling or with the rain falling and ice coming in, and really help us guide where our resources are, how we're deploying things, and how we're managing our system throughout that emergency. At the same time, as we're deploying these things from an emergency standpoint, we also really need to understand how our investments, how our work is doing from a performance standpoint. And so when I look into the performance and investment standpoint, that's a lot of where I got started in this business. We have 2 great examples here. First is our project portal. It's a powerful communication tool you see on the left-hand side of this slide, where we're communicating information about all of the projects that we have. So project information is just like one click away. It's integrated with opportunities in real time to provide public comment, gather information, ask questions, and those types of things. So it creates a one-stop shop for people to go and learn about the projects that may be in their community, around their homes or their businesses. On the right-hand side, you see our performance dashboard. It's really critical for us. So I've been one that has always kind of been a proponent of not only monitoring performance, but using it as a steering wheel as well. You have to have a steering wheel with your dashboard to know how you're guiding your decisions. And we display key metrics in this system to hold our teams accountable, but understand the work that's being done and the progress that's being made. It's just a simple way to visualize the major initiatives that are of interest to our stakeholders, ranging from our community leaders, our agency partners, and even the governor and our elected leaders, the people that are out there to serve with us. And we can really, really get out there and show the performance that we are providing for the taxpayer dollars that come our way. I alluded to it a little bit in the beginning, but it's really about one data source providing multiple outcomes. So using that data source to show our performance, using that data source to communicate with the public and interact, and then using that data source as executives to guide our programs and make those types of decisions that we need to make. When you look at the next part of my presentation here, you see on our slide a GIS and a data resource for us that has really grown extensively over the last 10 years. It's our data portal. It's our open data portal. And so really what started as an effort to make data open and accessible to all of our users has grown into this extensive library of data. And so, our open data sets range from traffic counts to transit lines and what's out there, to interactive maps, to printed maps that you can get to and see and print out, to dashboards and story maps, to training to be able to use the systems and the tools that we have available. And this is really becoming a part of a commitment by us to continue to make government transparent, as well as encourage an open, collaborative, innovative environment in the people that we serve and the services that we provide. And finally, I'll try and bring it all home a little bit from a broader leadership perspective. GIS has and will always be a really powerful tool that, one, connects our teams, and more importantly, connects today's world to our customers. It's important to me personally that GIS is a tool for everyone in this department at all levels. It's a communications tool for our communications teams. It's an operational crew tool for our first responders and our incident response teams, for decision makers, for our highway operations, to bus and rail services, to critical systems that we deploy in our aviation operations at BWI Marshall Airport, to the commerce that we have flowing through the Port of Baltimore. It's important for the private sector to better understand how transportation is working in Maryland so that we can use that to spur innovation and generate that environment that's friendly. And for our traveler who simply wants to learn more about transportation network and what we have going on to help with their daily commute. So GIS is really, for me, about networks. And for me, it's about seeing patterns and performance and how one thing can impact another and our entire system and network, how weather impacts safety, how congestion can impact bus service, whether it's a roadway, a rail line, a bus line, a trail, a shipping lane, a flight path, or fiber. It's my vision to continue to integrate these networks through our systems so that we can best make decisions that integrate the network itself, and constantly pursuing advancements that make sense, add value, and are part of the transformative transportation solutions that we have here in Maryland. Serving as the Secretary of Transportation in Maryland, I have the really unique responsibility to oversee not only our highway operations, but our tollways, our transit systems, our rail lines, our bus lines, the Port of Baltimore and the commerce that's flowing in and out of there, BWI Marshall Airport and the air service that's flowing in and out of there, the regulatory side with our motor vehicle administration, and just being able to oversee all aspects of transportation. So we have to integrate our network, and there's no better tool to do that than GIS, and no better way to guide our decisions on that integrated network than GIS. So let me just kind of pause there and say thank you for having me here today.